So before the camera starts rolling, I'll ask you the hardest question. You guys ready to go down to the media tonight?
The media?
Yeah.
Oh, is it a basketball?
Basketball.
It's a basketball game.
Put
together a star-studded lineup. You guys are
We've
going
recruited
down.
some ringers.
Oh, did you?
Oh, you did? We did once. Do you remember when Thurl Bailey was the speaker's intern? That day?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's
On the
hilarious.
dais, he was the intern for a little while, qualified.
And
as
he
an
showed up for the game that night?
No, you show up, you played.
That's funny.
That's like not.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
have any of
You don't
that
have
in our
any
back
ringers
pocket.
like that?
No.
That's-
Are any of you gonna be there?
I will not.
I am
We have
not.
executive appropriations.
Thanks, God.
I think they're gonna flip the agenda though, so you guys can get there.
Really?
What time is it being at?
Media games at 8, and I think you guys play the governor before that at 7.
Oh. I am not. My daughter, the high school basketball state championship's going on. The tournaments.
Yeah, that's probably a better place to be. Ready? So the count my vote, the bill that would have delayed it for a couple of years today, failed committee. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I've said a few times that those that did not have an opportunity to vote on the compromise last year, or those that voted against it, are certainly welcome to reintroduce legislation that would revisit that decision. Speaking for myself, we made a compromise. I'm willing to live up to that. There are a couple issues that are lingering that I'd like to visit. One is the issue of plurality. More than one or two candidates gather the required signatures. How many people would you have on a primary ballot? And does it make sense to have a runoff process so that you're not letting someone with a small minority of votes, a small percentage of votes becoming the nominee? And that was actually consistent with the compromise that be visited this year. So I'd like to see that still addressed. And then there is a pending court case where a judge is being asked to look at the validity of the compromise as a whole. If there's a decision that came back that would say that the compromise we made didn't stand judicial scrutiny, then I believe we would have to revisit what we did and look to. And you got to do that before you're in the event. We got to do it before next session, because once we get into the next session, the timing of ballot, everything is already underway. So that would require us, if a decision were to come that would be contrary to what we know right now, we would need to probably come back and address it. But other than that, it was a Senate bill, and it goes the road that many bills go. They have to get through committee and move on from there. So.
Chairman Evans insists that if it's not delayed, that they won't be ready for the upcoming election, and they may not be able to be on the ballot. Do you think there's validity to that argument?
Well, we got to find out. We obviously, I am a member of the Republican Party, and I would not want to see anything that would happen that would hurt the party or its structure. But again, we've had the legal analysis done. I think there are some ways forward that have been explained that I think would keep the party on a firm foundation. But certainly we need to work with the chairman of the party to make sure we're all on the same page. Got to be careful that in a state like Utah that we don't create circular firing squads within one party. I think the Democrat Party has had, or its grassroots has had concern about SB 54 or Count My Vote going around the convention caucus convention cycle to get to your nominee. But I think that strategically allowing one party to make the argument amongst itself has seemed to be a better strategy. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt the party. I don't want to see the party undermined through this discussion. I want to make sure that, like any good family, you can fight, you can disagree at times, but at the end of the day, I am a Republican and want to make sure that the party stays strong.
I understand your point of anyone who wasn't able to vote on it previously should have the right to make their voice heard on that. But what about when you consider it from the other end? What if it were Count My Vote who was taking away their end of the bargain and the tables were turned here? They're coming here and saying we lived up to our end of the bargain by pulling the initiative and now asking the legislature to do the same. Would it be a
Well, yeah.
different argument if the tables were turned?
No, I think that's what I'm saying, is that if we've made that agreement, then I'm holding to that agreement. I'm not looking to pull the rug out or change the terms of it. Either way, it was an agreement made for me, and I feel comfortable making it. But for those that didn't agree, they were a minority of the legislature, or the bill wouldn't have passed last year. And this is a brand new term with new lawmakers who aren't held to any specific agreement from the past legislature, so they can revisit it. But I think that process has started, and that's what's happened to the Senate bill. So
Today, Senate Bill 153, the medically frail plan, as it's also known, passed committee. So now we have the Healthy Utah and the medically frail plan set to hit the Senate floor. What's the update on Medicaid expansion in the House?
Do you want to address that, Representative Simpe?
Well, we just had in caucus meeting today discussions about some of the different proposals. We evaluated some of the different pros and cons. I think we're going to continue the discussion in caucus on Thursday. We'll look more in detail at some of the other options outside of Healthy Utah, and I think we're going to see how those discussions go.
Is there a concern that if, with all the different options, you might not get anything done and then still be able to leave the coverage gap closed?
So given our legislative process up here, the default is always nothing happens. I mean, that's how our structure is set up. And so I think there's general consensus that we want to do something for that donut hole population. And I think there's general consensus that getting them access to care would be a positive thing. But it's not unlike the gas tax discussions, which is the how needs a critical mass, given that there's a myriad of different alternatives and options being discussed, and we have to get to a critical mass associated with one of those options for something to get through.
Do you think you can get it done by the end of the session?
Well, I know we're going to continue the dialogue. There's a lot of time left. We're not quite halfway through, so.
And here's the issue. Politics is, I've been saying this a lot, it's addition. Okay, you have to have people that are willing to coalesce around a concept or a way forward. Right now, you still have a lot of energetic cases being made about different options. We're still into that spot. I will tell you, it is taking an incredible amount of political capital up here this year in terms of talking about this not annual decision, but generational decision, and wanting sincerely to get it right. So it is taking up a lot of our time and attention, but we are not to a point, I don't believe, where you're seeing the building of a proposal. You're still seeing, and you saw in our caucus today, a lot of different concepts or different proposals that have been thrown out there to caucus members and to legislators. I don't know that, I want to rephrase it. I think there is a wait and see idea that is out there. Certainly at the end of January, when the country was looking for states or its legislatures that were deciding what to do with the state portion of Medicaid expansion, there were 3 states. You had Tennessee, Wyoming, and Utah that were all considering through their legislative process whether to expand into that coverage gap. 2 of those states, Tennessee and Wyoming's legislatures, have declined to do it. They have opted to wait and see. And they make a strong argument that understanding the landscape even more and understanding what pitfalls might be out there is best for their states. You know, that's something it's hard to ignore as a lawmaker, being one of those 3 and seeing 2 states having made that decision to opt into a wait and see mode. That informs this process too, but that is not a do nothing. That is also a conscious decision to understand what challenges we have and get it right. There's a lot of talk about, you can always say King's X. You can always just say, never mind. You know, we wanted to do it, but it turned out to be too expensive and it's too hard. So we won't do it. And we'll get everyone even to sign a waiver that says, hey, you know what you're getting. You can get it taken away anytime. Are you okay? And people who would sign that, supposedly under that idea, would be fine with it. Well, we don't think that's fine. And we don't know that if you're talking about whether to expand into a coverage we don't currently provide and how hard that decision is. Imagine withdrawing from the coverage that we're providing for people right now. You're going to find lawmakers who believe that would be nearly impossible. And rightly so. I don't know that you want to be in the role of taking away benefits for people. So the idea of how long, or, okay, we don't know how long it is, but we can always pull back and say, never mind. It's easier said than done. And I think we're realistic about that, and it might not be us, it might not be me, it might be a future legislature, but I still care about what we promise to Utahns and what we can keep by way of those promises, and the sustainability of something like that. That is weighing heavily on the minds of lawmakers right now. And I think you caught a little bit of that discussion in our caucus, but it's serious, and we feel like whatever we step forward towards, we've got to know that we can provide that long term, that we keep our promises.
Do you think the options on the table in the Senate right now represent a good route one way or the other, or do you think there could be room for a plan to emerge in the House?
I think the Senate options feel some of the spectrum of things that could happen, and I also think the Senate options could be modified. So I don't think it's hard fast this or hard fast this. I think that Senate options could be retooled a little bit or modified and to fit a range of ideas.
Okay, last question.
And one thing I want to add, there's been a lot of discussion about our federal tax dollars that were being sent to Washington. And as Representative Sampey pointed out earlier, we're already getting tens or probably hundreds of millions of dollars back, even though we haven't done anything with Medicaid expansion. We're drawing down money from our current Medicaid program and parts of the ACA. We have 125,000 Utahns that are getting subsidized coverage on the federal health exchange, and the federal government is paying 100% of that subsidy. 125,000 Utahns, as of last week, is probably more now, that the federal government's paying the full freight of the subsidies. That's drawing down significant dollars to our economy.
Are you working on a proposal that you could potentially represent in the House?
I work on this every day, and we're going to have another caucus on Thursday to continue this discussion and try to inform and educate and hear from our colleagues. And we're still seeing how this end game plays out.
Okay, thanks guys.